In today's episode of Today in World War II, January 9th, the evil German minesweeping offensive against British submarines continues. An Italian submarine has to fight off killer sharks. The Japanese begin their main offensive against MacArthur in Japan in Bataan in the Philippine Islands. Himmler visits the Warsaw Ghetto and is shocked and furious to find out it still exists. Tojo in Japan authorizes one of the most incredibly stupid offenses of the war. Um, the opposite of a stupid offense happens in the Philippines and Luzon, where the U.S. Sixth Army lands on Lingayen Gulf. And finally, the world's first Heimlich maneuver occurs in China. Let's get started. Okay, so yesterday's video, I talked to you about how these German minesweepers off the German coast in the North Sea were picking off British submarines. They picked off two British submarines, and I had expressed my wonder and a little bit of shock, wondering how in the world these minesweepers can take out more than just one lucky shot against a submarine. Well, today, the day after that, they sank another British submarine. In this case, the HMS Starfish was the unlucky victim, and that was quite the bag. Minesweepers in the same area in 2 days sink three British submarines. First of all, it makes you wonder why the Brits were concentrating their submarines so close together in this spot. They weren't, I don't think the British ever introduced wolf packs like the Germans did, and then of course the American submarine service did later in Japan. Brits didn't do wolf packs, as far as I know. So what were they doing, having all these subs in this one tight little area? And again, I always wonder what in the world the minesweepers did to to sink them. I mean, I can't imagine these minesweepers having 20, 30, 50 death charges on board. That's not what they were built for. But however they did it, they knocked out another British submarine today. So bad news for the Royal Navy. And good news for the minesweepers, maybe. Anyway, but there's good news for you because you have this amazing opportunity right now, if you act fast, to click on that subscribe button, click on the little bell that will notify you when these videos drop. Then you'll be in this secret club and you'll get these videos, the notifications right away, and you can watch them. You can see how the war develops every single day. Okay? Thank you. On January 9th, 1941, an Italian submarine, Commandante Cappellini. And by the way, feel free to comment about how bad my accent is on this YouTube video. I encourage you to do so because it is pretty bad. Anyway, it experienced some malfunctions. The hydroplanes weren't working, and that's bad news when a submarine's hydroplanes aren't working. That means they can't go up and they can't go down. So, and because apparently there was a leak, the stern was taking on water, and submarines don't like to take on water unless it's in their ballast tanks to help them go up and down. So that's a pretty important thing they had to fix. Well, I laugh, I'm sorry, because I was 11 or 12, I think, when I first saw Jaws. And what's up with my family letting me go see Jaws at that age anyway? So I went, and it traumatized me. So I have had this fascination and revulsion of sharks ever since. And this, when I learned about this, I said I got to share this with you guys because this is. I mean, just try to imagine this in your head, okay? So they had these sailors, these Italian submarine sailors, would jump into the water to do repairs, in the ocean. So you got the submarine, they're jumping off and they're in the water and they're trying to repair the sub. Meanwhile, you got sharks that are trying to take out their legs. And so you had the other sailors that had rifles that were trying to shoot the sharks before they took out the Italian sailors' legs by biting them off. It worked. They were able to repair their sub successfully. Gosh, you know what? I don't know what the Italian equivalent in Italy was for the Congressional Medal of Honor or the Victoria Cross for the Brits, but boy, they deserved it because my gosh, I would rather charge a Nazi pillbox than to be in the water relying on the aim of my submarine sailors with rifles to protect my legs from getting bit off by a shark. Ugh. Makes me gives me chills even thinking about it. But what should not give you chills is the choice I'm asking you right now, which is to go to below the screen, thumbs up, thumbs down, click the thumbs up, and leave a comment because the algorithm demands it, and I want to grow my channel. We go over this every single day. Probably getting old for you. It's old for me, but let's just solve it right now and just please do it, okay? I appreciate it. Okay, on January 9th, 1942 the Japanese army began their main offensive against MacArthur's troops on Bataan. If you remember, when MacArthur realized that there was going to be no resupply from the United States Navy, he knew that the only hope he could have was to retreat into the Bataan Peninsula, let go of Clark Field, let go of Cavite Naval Port, let go of pretty much the entire island of Luzon, and retreat into this peninsula, the Bataan Peninsula, because that was the best way of holding off the Japanese. They would have to batter their way through multiple defense lines that he could set up. That was the strategy. And the idea was that he could hold out for 4 to 6 months, and that would give the American Navy time to gather up this huge resupply column and fight its way through, the Japanese, the Marshall Islands, the Caroline Islands, the Philippines. We know that wasn't going to happen. They couldn't do that until 1944, but that was the hope and dream anyway. But it was futile, of course, but this was the very beginning of this. So the Japanese had pulled their more experienced combat ready forces and they threw some inexperienced divisions in, which caused them to have some problems against the Americans and the Filipinos that were manning the defense line. So this was the very first attack. It was um, repelled, and it was going to take a few months for the Japanese to break through, and we'll follow along their progress along in later videos coming up. And in January 9th, 1943, going back to Europe, Heinrich Himmler, uh, humanitarian of the year, visited the Warsaw Ghetto in Poland, and he was absolutely furious to find out that there were still over 40,000 Jews still living there. So he ordered the SS to liquidate it. Now, spoiler alert, it wasn't going to be that easy to liquidate these 40,000 Jews there because, they were pissed off and they weren't going to take it anymore. And we'll follow what happened in videos that come up. But spoiler alert, they killed an awful lot of SS and good for them. All right. And then on January 9th, 1944, look at the date, 1944. Okay. Already 2 years into this war, they're already getting pushback all over the Pacific. Prime Minister Hideki Tojo authorized the plans for Operation Yugo against northeastern India. India, they couldn't hold off the Americans in the Pacific, and they're going to attack India. Wow. So he approved that offensive. Let me just say, spoiler alert, it was a strategic and tactical blunder. And you just wonder about these people that take power in these fascist authoritarian regimes. They're good at something. They're good at I guess, power plays and convincing people to follow them. But usually, my gosh, they are idiots when it comes to military stuff and making decisions that, end up losing wars. So in this case, didn't lose the war for them. It just hastened its um, end. Let's put it that way. Okay. And on January 9th, 1945, now the U.S. is on the offensive. The United States in 1944 in the fall had already invaded Leyte Gulf, and they were moving, throughout all the islands, the Philippines. Now they invaded the main island, Luzon Island. That's where the capital is, Manila. That's where Bataan and Corregidor, all the places that are going to be famous as we move forward with this study here. The Sixth Army invaded, same place that the Japanese invaded back in 1942 or 41, I should say. And well, we know the result there. Spoiler alert, they won. Okay. And then finally, on January 9th, 1945, when I teased this video, I said that it was the very first example of the Heimlich maneuver in world history. Well, it was kind of a joke because actually what happened was there was this American soldier. His name was Henry Heimlich, and he accepted a volunteer mission, and he did not know until later that they were going to send his sorry butt to the interior of China. And so I immediately thought of his last name. So Heimlich was maneuvered into China. Okay, first of all, I want to apologize for anybody who needed a Heimlich maneuver in their life. I apologize to the person named Heimlich who invented the Heimlich maneuver for that joke. I apologize for any food that was lodged in anyone's air holes in the history because no one deserved that joke, and I apologize, but not really. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to show you more tomorrow.